Hello and welcome, everybody. My name is Tommy Gilmore with Noisy Bird Digital Marketing, and you are watching another episode of Wingin It. If this is your first time here, every week I talk with a different business owner to help you learn a little bit about the construction business, learn what to do, what not to do, and hopefully help you feel like you're winging it just a little bit less. I'm really excited. We've got a wealth of knowledge today. Keith Kelsch, he's been in the construction industry for 25 years. Not only that, he comes from an education background, so he's going to teach us some stuff today. I love chatting with Keith. I feel like I learn something from him every time. I'm excited to see where this podcast goes. Keith, thanks for joining me today, man. How are you?
My pleasure. Let's get going.
Awesome. So a little bit of background. Keith not only owns a construction business and has an education background, but he took the two and combined them. And he has a growing YouTube channel called How to Build Your Own Home. It's got 44,000 subscribers. And the cool thing is he's actually gotten business from it. So today we're going to learn not only about the construction business and some things there, but Keith, I want to learn also, how do you grow organically? How do you get business from social media? So I'm excited to chat. But before we jump into those things, just tell me a little bit about how you got started in your business and what got you started as a GC.
I was in education for a while, 15, 18 years or thereabout, and teaching philosophy, literature, writing, critical thinking, stuff like that. And as Somebody Moved My Cheese, if you haven't read that book, read that book. Somebody moved my cheese and didn't want me in higher ed. So I left and I took a job as a produce clerk for a couple months, eventually took a job teaching again in Mexico. I left that after 2 weeks. Trying to teach Native Americans on the Indian reservation under, federal guidelines wasn't good enough for me. It just wasn't a good fit. So I left after 2 weeks, came back, and I became an apprentice electrician, if you can believe that. A guy with 2 master's degrees, higher ed, all that, ivory tower stuff. And then I took a job with the nonprofit sector for a while and was a construction supervisor. They quickly made me construction manager. And then just within 2 months, they made me program director over about $10 million. So I was building affordable housing for 3-4 years and learned a lot and really was thrown into the fire. And when I took that position, nothing was organized. Invoices were thrown into a drawer. Nothing was being paid. People were whining and they weren't getting paid. And that's not the way to run a construction company, even if it's a nonprofit one. So 2008 came around and I had everything running smooth, won several awards, and then they let me go. And then since 2009, the first month of 2009, I've been on my own. So I've been in construction one way or another. And I was up north helping another builder who needed some management expertise. And I went up there and helped him for about 6 months, thinking I might want to move up north in a higher tourist ski environment up near Park City. And I was making Facebook posts, and this gets into organic marketing. I had a Facebook page, and I created a Facebook page called How to Build Your Own Home. And I started making posts. I just started helping people. I just made a post here and a post there, and people would reach out to me. One thing led to another. Within about a month and a half, I had maybe 500 followers. And one person reached out to me and says, "Hi, Keith, you're up in Park City, right? Yeah, we're going to be building a home in Oregon. We're moving out that way. And can we come talk with you? We live in Provo, and we'd like to come up and see if you can give us some advice." I said, okay. And I was staying in a hotel at the time. So we met in the hotel, the Zermatt Hotel, a very nice, posh hotel.
It's a very nice hotel.
Yeah, we met in the hotel lobby, and they brought their plans. And after about an hour, I downloaded a whole bunch of information to them. And they says, "Can we hire you to be a consultant and we can just call you? Because we can't afford a general contractor. Is there any way we can hire you?" And I go, "Sure." And they said, what cost? And I go, "Tell you what, $800 and I'll give you everything I got. And you can call me anytime you want. And I'll give you a budget and I'll give you checklists on as you need them." Within another month, I picked up another client, raised my price to $1,000. Within another month, I picked up another client, raised the price to $2,000. I said, I can't consult all these people. I need a platform, which is a good problem to have. And I needed a platform, and I put all my courses, and that's where my teaching came in. I knew how to build curriculum. I knew how to do all that. And now we're knocking on the door of about 10,000 subscribers on that platform. And then we moved it to a video format on YouTube, and there's about 43,000 subscribers on there. We get about 100,000 views a month. Now, let's talk marketing. We started several years ago, maybe I think around 6.5 years ago, I started this, and I only have about 44,000 subscribers. Others are a lot more successful than I am because they put so much, they just go what the algorithm tells them to do. And that's not how I do things. I just do video on what's going on with me this week. Okay, we're doing a foundation prep. Here's what we're doing on a foundation prep. So a lot of what I do isn't necessarily perfect for the algorithm. So you either live and breathe by what the digital world tells you to do, or you live and breathe by what's just natural for you. And that's kind of hard. A lot of people don't know there's a difference. And I mean, you would tell me as much, Tommy, that when you're marketing, there's something called keywords. There's something called, what's really getting clicks and what's not. I've had videos that have reached almost 300,000 views. I haven't had any video that's reached 1 million views. I know people in my trades that have had videos all the time that are 2 and 3 million views. I don't get that. I'm a small guy, but I'm very effective, and I have over 500 videos that we've produced in that amount of time. And a lot of students email me and say, thank you. I've learned everything I need to know just from watching your videos. I go, you didn't buy my course? And so there's ways to do it where it's probably a lot more successful. There's ways to do it where it's sustainable. But marketing is a beast that is really hard if you do it organically without some sort of insight as to what you should do organically. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And I would love to deep dive into that a little bit more, because I know that you're somebody that you like the numbers. And so as you're sifting through this data from the organic, as you're looking and being like, okay, which videos performed well, which ones didn't, what are some of the indicators you're looking for? What to you makes a successful video? And how do you then take that information and say, all right, yeah, we're not going to just sit and feed the algorithm, but what can we maybe do on this next video that can hopefully make it successful?
Yeah.
Or do you care about that?
And my son does all my videography, and we do some good production quality stuff. But you'd be surprised. I did a video on how to build your own barn door. Oh my gosh, like 160,000 views. And you wouldn't think that. But I don't do a lot of how-to or DIY stuff on my channel, and a lot of people are looking for that. I try to emphasize that, wait a minute, what's the biggest savings on a home? Avoiding the general contractor. So if you can avoid the general contractor, that's 10 to 15% on the total cost of the home. Plus, when you add in the realtor fees, that could be 3 to 6% on top of all that. So we're talking 20% on a home that could be $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 to build. If that's not enough for you just to be the GC on your own property, if that's not enough and you have to go DIY everything, I tell them not to be a DIY biscuit head, because they can do it wrong. And I don't recommend that at all. So, but a lot of people are looking for that. They're looking for, how can I do it? I don't want to have to hire a plumber or an electrician. Yeah, but the time it's going to take for you to learn something like that, whereas you could be making money elsewhere on a skill set you already know how to make money at, why waste your time? And people don't understand that. It's like, I can market myself. I'll market my own thing. Really? If you really don't know anything about it, you're going to try to do that by yourself. And so put your money where you don't have any skill.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that. They just don't want to put any money into something. They want to try to do it themselves, and then they waste time and they waste money.
Yeah. I especially with marketing, I mean, I think it's true anywhere in business, right? Like I know my financials to a certain extent, but I use somebody for my bookkeeping, because my time is much better spent than reviewing every single one of my hundreds of bank transactions that happen every single month. Like, and the same can be said for your marketing. The same can be said for a lot of aspects of your business. And especially, I've been in marketing for, sales and marketing for 10 years, true marketing for about 5. And every single day I'm learning something new about sales and marketing. And so if you start from scratch, you really are on just an uphill climb on anything, whether it's marketing or whether it's learning how to build your own house. Like you said, you're better off paying somebody that has been doing it for a while and that has made mistakes and can learn from those mistakes, instead of, paying for those mistakes out of your own pocket.
Right.
But yeah, with your YouTube channel and your course and everything like that, you kind of started, like you said, a while ago. What do you feel like has changed with that? Do you feel like it's easier? Do you feel like it's harder for people? Where do you stand on that right now?
Well, here's where you get into the algorithm. I was growing really, really, really fast when I first came out. And this was, a little bit before COVID. And even during COVID, I was growing fast, but it slowed down. At one point, I had a video and I had a certain presidential figure on a flag in the garage where we were videotaping. And this person was not popular in some powers to be world. Well, that person made a negative comment, and then it affected my channel ever since then. And so when you start trying to grow organically, you really don't have that free market that you think you do. You can do one wrong thing and it can really throw you off. And it's not that kind of an environment now, but it was really bad. Political correctness was really bad a couple of years ago. And if you advocated for something even off on the side, even not verbally, but it can be seen visually, that can be so you really have to keep your politics separate from your business. I mean, as sad as it sounds, you want to advocate and be a free expression for something. But when you're dependent upon social media and other platforms to move product, to move communication and move content, you have to be very, very careful with regard to that.
Yeah. Well, and that's the hard thing about social media, right? Is that, a couple of, even if it's a vocal minority, if they make a big deal out of something, I mean, you look at Kevin Hart, he's a major celebrity worth billions of dollars at this point, and he was uninvited to host whatever award show it was. It was the Oscars or whichever one it was, because somebody found something that he said 10 years ago that they didn't like.
Yeah.
You just, these things live on forever, and so you don't know what was fine at one point. You don't know what it's going to be at another point. So it is difficult in that way for sure to navigate the social media realm and the social media landscape there. Yeah. As far as on the general contract side, what have you found people respond to with your YouTube channel? What's something that you've learned as far as like, hey, if I wanted to get more viewers, this is the kind of thing that I would do.
You want to be the expert. Like, I don't get referrals for build jobs in my particular community. I don't have referrals. It's hard. It's very competitive. My business is super competitive. You have to make a name for yourself. And so, like, I picked up a job where a home was burned down, and the gentleman looked online. He says, I want to find a builder who knows how to build a home that doesn't burn down. Lo and behold, it was the guy across the street, me. I built a home that didn't burn down. He says, you're going to build my home. I had another gentleman. He says, I want a wraparound deck. I want a guy who knows how to build wraparound decks that are very comfortable. So I had a video about wraparound decks, and he hired me. Turned out to be a really big build. Now, that's how I get work, is I try to be an expert in one particular video, and not many people are out there. Like Matt Reisinger finally came out with a video on how to build a home that doesn't burn down. All right. And, mine got maybe 20,000 views. He'll get, 2 million views because he's been in the arena a lot longer than I have. And a lot of guys make the full move into social media, meaning they give up their build business and they're just going to go out and promote this social media because that's where they're going to make all their money. I haven't done that. I didn't want to do that. I still have a construction company I run, and I have a social media company I run as well. And I've kept them both. And a lot of people just want to go straight on with the media side. And then I feel like they don't become the experts anymore. They're not really learning and trying new things. And the only way you do that is if you implement that in your own business. And so, I had a Facebook Live last night, and I said, I would love to have a debate with Matt Reisinger, because he keeps talking about sealing up your home. And I like to have a home that's a little bit drafty. Sounds counterintuitive, but I teach people that when you have a coat on and you go outside in the winter and you're shoveling snow, guess what? You start to build up heat inside that coat, right? And pretty soon you want to unzip the coat. I'm sweating inside here, all right? Homes are just like people. You cook, you bathe, you build up moisture inside the home. And if you seal that sucker up so much that it can't dry out, you're going to have moisture and mildew and mold and cold condensing surfaces throughout the home, and you're going to have some problems. And those who build up those homes super, super sealed up like that, they have to have what's called makeup air. Then they have to have an electricity to constantly keep their home dried out.
Yeah.
And I just, that's where people are going. They're thinking this is a high performance home. And I know I'm just the opposite. I'm the only guy out there that's talking about don't build a high efficiency home, build a high value home, a home that's going to last and it's going to put up to the elements and you're never going to have any maintenance. And these so-called high efficiency homes, they barely can clock any kind of savings on a monthly basis. Like I have a home that surpasses solar home. I grab the sun in the winter perfectly. I grab it in the wintertime. So this temperature goes down to 62. By midday, the whole main level of this home is 74 degrees. I never have to turn on the heat. That's efficiency, not high, whatever they call it, high performance homes. And so I think you become an expert. You just slice out something and you say to yourself, wait a minute, everyone else is talking about high performance and sealing up their homes. I want to be that guy that is talking about something different than what they're talking about. And it's not that you become an anti this or anti that. You just become better informed. So, for example, I started remodeling Pioneer homes and I learned something from the pioneers. Our Pioneer stock came all the way across from Illinois, Missouri, all the way up to Maine, New York, and they have a lot of humidity. So when they build a home, it's deliberately drafty. It's deliberately drafty underneath the floorboards, underneath the stem wall, because if they didn't, it'd build up moisture and mildew, and then the home would start to rot. They carried that all the way across West. So when I started remodeling and rehabbing Pioneer homes, I learned how these homes were lasting so long. I restored a home that was literally cedar on dirt, just cedar on dirt. And it had draftiness everywhere, but it was built in 1864.
Wow. And still standing.
1864. Okay. It's over 130 years old, more than that, And so I learned that they had holes in the floor underneath the cabinetry to allow for ventilation through the home, through the stem wall and everything. So it's never going to mold and rot and die and decay. And so I say, that's how I want to build. I want to build so my stuff lasts a very, very long time. So I adopted modern technology with some of the philosophy of the past, and that's the kind of builder I am. And so you find yourself in marketing, you have to find yourself to be an expert in something that you know how to do that no one else is doing, and you just do it in a unique way. And that's what's going to be competitive against AI. Because AI won't put together that expert perspective you have. They'll go out and find you as the expert. They'll reference you. You have to set yourself apart. And that if you don't learn to set yourself apart in a unique way, then you're just another voice, and you want to be a different voice. And that's the best way to grow organically, is be a different voice.
Yeah. Right now there's a big push for personal brands and thought leadership and things like that. And it kind of plays into what you're saying right now, right? Which is the way that the world's going is we've got, and we've had for the last really 20 years, these computer algorithms that look for, okay, this is what I think you're looking for, right? And they've only gotten more efficient. You talk about keywords and things like that. And now we have AI that's saying, if you want information on this, here's a YouTube channel that has 700 videos that talk about how to build your own house, right? And maybe it recommends your YouTube channel because there's so much content on there that it pulls information from, or your Instagram channel or whatever. Like AI is getting to that point that you can talk to it, you can ask it a more complex question, and it's going to pull and it's going to say, hey, here's the short answer to it, but here's a wealth of information. And I think it's going to keep going that way. If we have a good backlog of information, or if we can present ourselves as experts in something that not a lot of people are talking about and kind of dominate that niche, then I think AI is going to start to really play a big role in that in the next, really 12 and 24 months.
I think AI is going to replace so much work out there, so many of us. And so my feeling is that the next 3 years, if you don't start something, a brand, a content platform, whatever it is, if you don't start it now, it's going to be increasingly difficult to start it. I mean, increasingly difficult. The next generation is not going to have what you and I have, Tommy. We had the wild, wild west.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to have that. And so it's going to be even more difficult to be an expert in something, because I can go on AI right now, and I'm a technical writer, and I can do text analysis on a text, and it can break down the text in just split of a second. Give me a whole breakdown of the text, give me the comparisons, give me the summary, give me everything of a major text. And I didn't have to read it. And I'm not, I love to read, but I love to gather as much information as I possibly can. I don't have time. Most of us don't have time. And so the whole concept of writing, it's going to change. I'm seeing how things are there's going to be something happen in the form of writing that's going to be in what I call a bullet point fashion. So if you can't sustain a reader with energy and visual and stimulation of mind, if you can't do that, they're going to put the book down. Even if there's a good close at the end, or there's a good argument that it's eventually coming to, people don't have time for a 150-page book or a 300-page book. Give it to me in the gist, and that's the impatience of humanity. You'll still have your novels and stuff like that for entertainment, relaxing. People love to read because the imagination is more powerful than any other tool out there. But I think we're up against a lot of stuff. And I'm worried about my kids, and what they're going to face and how they're going to deal with it. I have one son that's in a tech. They both have their own businesses, and one of them's in a field that's gradually being taken over very quickly by AI.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for them.
Yeah. Well, and I know, you and I have talked about this a little bit off camera, but let's dig into that a little bit. I know that you're working on, handing off your business. You've worked for, a long time to build up your business, make it so that you can hand off something valuable to your kids. And one thing you and I have talked about before is the idea of stewardship. How do you create stewardship as you hand it off, and let your kids start to take your baby maybe in a different direction that you don't always have a say in every single decision and things like that. And, we can go into the AI part of that too, but, I'm curious, what does that look like for you as you start to create a business that has more systems that aren't just what lives in Keith's head? How do you create a business that lives beyond yourself and that you can give people ownership and stewardship over different parts of it?
I wrote a book that comes out in about 2 months. Here's the title of it, A Silent Boom. And there's a subtitle there, The End of Generational Fracture. And so what we're facing with is the generations can't pass wisdom to the next one, because the next generation thinks that you're outdated because your technology is outdated. Now think about that for a second. Every generation before a current generation that's currently living is considered outdated because their technology is outdated. So everything that person had to say, all the wisdom, all the hope, all the life experience, human, personal, spiritual, you name it, all of that is toast because the next generation thinks that you're toast because your education, because your technology is out of date. Everything is defined by technology today. Everything, human relations, family, you name it. And that's what we're really up against. We've been up against that now ever since the boomer generation came. And so the boomer generation was the first generation to say, I don't need you, mom and dad. I am my own person. Bye. And because they did that, everything that the silent generation before them, everything they had to offer, whether some of it was irrelevant or some of it was highly relevant, all of it was discarded. And now the boomer generation has generations after them, Generation Y, Z, X, et cetera, et cetera. Every single one of those generations thinks the generation prior is irrelevant because their technology is old. And so we have no continuity. And so you ask the question, how do you pass on some teaching to the next generation? You have to take deliberate effort with your kids and say, we are not going to do that in this family. We are going to make sure that we carry on the best wisdom of the past with the free expression of our own lives. And we're going to carry them forward. We're not going to lose them. And if we don't learn how to do that and do that soon, then we're going to have an algorithm telling us what to think. We're going to have an AI robot telling us what to think. And that's not good. That's because who's programming that?
Yeah. Yeah. And what are their motives and everything else? So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that. And I think that what you're saying applies not only within our business, but within our families, obviously, creating that culture of valuing, you know, everyone's opinion. One thing that we do is we talk about my grandpa. My grandpa passed away about 5 years ago, and he was probably the biggest impact on my life. He was about 88 years old, and up until about a year before he passed away from it took dementia and cancer to put him down, just because that was his generation, man. Like he was just a doer and a beer and everything else. But I look at him, and he was the definition of wealth. He came here from Norway when he was 19 years old, grew up in Nazi occupied Norway, served in the US military, came to love his country. I mean, just like did everything right. And he was wealthy not only in money because he worked very hard and worked his way up through a company, but he was wealthy in his relationships. He was wealthy in his experiences. He got up at 5:30 every morning and went and exercised. Even at 87 years old, he went and he would swim 3 times a week and then he'd walk 3 times a week. And so in his physical health and his mental health and his relationships, he was just wealthy in every way. And I tell my kids about him. I talk about Grandpa Jack, and they talk about him now. And it's so cool because it creates that culture within my family of these are the kinds of people that we want to be. We want to be like Grandpa Jack. We
Right.
want to value people. We want to value our bodies. And so it's cool to hear my 7 and my 10-year-old learn these lessons through my grandpa. And so, that's a specific anecdote of mine, but like we can do that within our families. We can create that culture that way, and we can do that within our businesses. The things that we talk about are the things that we come to value. And so if we have a mission statement, or if we have core values, how often do we bring those up? How often are we talking about those things? Even if we have, 2 other people that we work with or 1 person that we work with, right? Or in your
Yeah.
industry, it could just be subcontractors. Do you do that at all with your subs and have those expectations for your job
Yeah, I
sites?
do. You have to constantly educate them. I'll tell them, I'll pull them aside. I say, you've got more work from me, but you got to keep a couple of things in mind. Clean your site. Don't leave trash for me to have. And I go through the whole litany of things, and constantly educate them. And so that's what we have to do with social media and marketing is you have to constantly stand for those core principles that you're living by. Like I carry mine just about everywhere I go. Keith's epistemology tree. And I have love, vision, humility, obedience, consecration, conservation, peace. And if you don't have something that you live by, despite the changes in technology, then you're not going to, and you have to echo those constantly out into the public. Reiterate those principles over and over and over again. This is how I live my life. This is how I guide myself, etc. And if you don't do that, you're not going to really have any chance to pass anything on to the next generation. But if you remain silent, that's definitely ground zero, dead on doornail. Dead on arrival. So you don't want to be that way.
Yeah, I love that. I've got 2 final questions for you. One, you brought up peace as one of your core values. So I want to ask you, Keith, just because I know you and I value your opinion. What does peace mean to you in your life?
I used to be a little sensitive about how people thought of me and what they felt or criticisms they'd have or a bad review or something like that. Peace is when you have all of the principles above that. So love, vision, and I say vision and dreams. People perish for lack of vision, and you have to have both. And they're defined differently. And a lot of people don't know that. A vision is, well, I won't go into that, but humility, obedience. And I now changed consecration to stewardship because consecration was a little too academic, a little too scientific. And now stewardship implies a lot more than consecration. And so I'm on a bandwagon right now to try to teach people about how important stewardship is. And it really has to do with care. So if you care about something, then you can walk away from that with greater peace. But if you don't care about it, then your peace is fractured. It's not the peace that you wanted to have. And so that's why peace is my number one thing. I'm going after it. That's I want more of that, but I have to make sure that all these others are just fine and working. And maybe in a year, I'll change it a little bit. My dad's epistemology tree is here. That's his diagram, and mine's above that. So I'm deliberately making sure I carry forward from the past into the future my best And then, I correct them, like the Father in heaven corrected consecration. He says, I don't like that. I think you should use stewardship. And I've changed it. So,
Yeah. I love the idea of continuously evolving your values for that. Because I think so often we think, oh, well, I have to nail this the first time. Otherwise, I'm a hypocrite or I'm whatever, whatever that
right.
story is that we tell ourselves. But I love that yours is ever evolving as you learn and grow as a person. I think that's really cool. And I think that plays into the piece as well. The last question I wanted to ask you, Keith, is, I mean, you've been in the construction industry for 25 years. We didn't even get into, surviving the death of your first career and that transition or anything like that. We'll have to have you back and talk about that a little bit. But what has been the biggest lesson that you've learned in business, or what's the best piece of business advice that you've been given, and what does that look like in your business? How did you learn from it?
Well, when I first left higher education, I came at entrepreneurship with an idealistic perspective, that I'm doing this because it's the good thing or the right thing to do. And I met a gentleman by the name of Ernie, and he became a mentor of mine. And he looked at me and he says, what's the purpose of business? And I go, to add value. And he goes, no, what's the purpose of business? To make the world a better place. I kept on saying all these high ideals. He goes, nope, Keith, I'm sad to say, but you're not getting it. I'm going to tell you what the purpose of business is. And I go, what is it, Ernie? And he says, to build wealth. You can't do anything else that you're talking about without wealth. And it was a big eye opener. So I came from an idealistic perspective in higher education. Ivory Tower, I'm going to inspire you. You're going to go out there and change the world. And I get to sit here on my laurels and say that I inspired you. That doesn't transfer into the business world. Business world that is so different that if you're not making money, okay, you can't survive. And if you can't survive, you can't tweak everything else to all the good that you want to do in the world. I mean, it was a hard reality for me to accept. And building wealth is not an enemy. It's not an evil thing. Once you have that wealth, now you can do some good with it. You can accomplish some things. And I've witnessed that in my life. I've been able to do some things. I started something called Zion Camps, and you can go to zioncamps.com, check it out. We have events several times a year. I couldn't have done that if I didn't have a little bit of extra wealth to make some things happen. And that's, to me, the biggest advice. And I thank Ernie for teaching me that. And I've had other mentors teach me a lot of things, but that was my first wake-up call.
I love that. I think it's really easy from an outside perspective to look at business owners who want money and say, oh, they're greedy. And I've certainly thought that way. And I've had this conflict even as I began my business is, how much is too much and things like that. And I think, like you said, the issue is not money. It's what you do with it, where your heart is with it. If your heart is in serving and doing good and providing value, then it's not a bad thing to have money. In fact, it's a good thing because now you're able to do more for other people. A mentor of mine, I'll tell a quick story as well. He is a couple of years older than me, and he did door-to-door sales. He was my manager in door-to-door. And he retired at 34, 35 after building like a $2.5 million home and had money in the bank. And he left the company because he said, I just hit a ceiling. I've learned what I can here, and I have enough money that it will outlast me at this point. And so,
Yeah.
That's the kind of money that we're talking about. But and he's got a very rough exterior, but as I've gotten to know him, he's paid for funerals. He's paid for and not just for family members. He has bailed people out of very bad position because he can. And, he does that for people close to him, and he does it out of the goodness of his heart. But that's the kind of person he is. And so, and he always says, if I wasn't wealthy, if I didn't work very hard to do this, I wouldn't be in a position to give like I
And
do.
you'd probably be a little more bitter.
Mm-hmm.
When you can't do anything good, you become a little more sourpuss. But when you can help out, it makes up the difference. So
yeah, I love that. Well, Keith, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
You do a Thursday live on Facebook as well as on YouTube, right? Where
it's on YouTube, but we distribute it to all the other different platforms. Yeah.
Okay. So the channel is How to Build Your Own Home. I'm on YouTube. Very easy to find. Go subscribe to him, guys. Keith is awesome. He puts out a ton of free content. And then if you're interested in building your own home, buy his course. Where do they go to find your course?
Howtobuildyourownhome.com.
You make it nice and easy.
Yep.
Howtobuildyourownhome.com.
Yep.
I'll put that in the description as well.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Keith. And thank you for watching, guys. This has been another episode of Wingin' It. Hopefully you've learned something about your marketing today, how to get your name out there, what you can do to promote your business through social media, through organic content. And hopefully you feel like you're winging it just a little bit less. We'll see you next week.